Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Geek With Sneaks, the place where game devs will talk game dev. And today I'm joined by a very special guest, someone I could call a longtime friend of mine in the industry, someone who actually hired me for probably one of my favorite jobs ever, which was working on Planet Sheen.
Excellent show.
Yes, absolutely. And his name, he goes by, is Spanky. Real name, Andrew Grant. Hey Spanky, welcome, and thank you for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So just a little history on where we've worked together. So as I mentioned, he was actually one of the first people to hire me. So in my second job as an animator, I decided to apply to a place called Core Digital Pictures to work on this awesome Nickelodeon show called Planet Sheen, which was a Jimmy Neutron spinoff. And I'm sure Spanky's gone through hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of reels during this process. And for some reason, he decided, "Hey, this guy, I think he has the stuff." But at the end of the day, I think it was because I had a random Michael Jackson dance at the end of my demo reel that just caught everyone off guard.
Yes, that's exactly what it did.
No, it's awesome.
It's great because you look at, especially when you look at reels that are generally the same, and then anything that kind of catches your eye, you go, wait, you'll see it again. It does stick in your head at the end of the day. So, pro tip.
Boom, just like that. So the pro tip is, if all else fails, just stick in Michael Jackson dancing to get to your reel, and you'll be good.
It was perfect for that day.
No, it's good. And I think it's the quirkiness of the show that really kind of made that show really amazing, and maybe could have been what kind of drew you to selecting me as one of the guys on your team. So, well,
that is true because obviously the demo reels show what people are capable of at that moment. But really, honestly, and if you get called in for an interview, that means that, okay, your work's fine. Now we want to meet the person. And you're right, because that show was nuts. I mean, it was so well written and so fast paced. And just see that little snippet is like, oh, this kind of he could be perfect in our crew for personality wise. So bring you in for the interview. There you go.
Honestly, if I think that really kicked off my career in a way, right? Like all the connections I made through working with people at that one studio really, really set the tone for I guess my trajectory as an animator, because of all the people I met in the industry. And you retain those relationships, right? Like I've known Spanky since 2009. 2009, right?
Yeah.
Or was it 2000? Yeah, 2009.
Oh, sure.
So and that's 11 years running, right? It's 11 years running, and that is how should I say this in a nice way that doesn't make you sound old. Honestly it's
I am old. It's no secret.
But perfect segue here. Spanky is the most veteran. Sorry, there's no way I could say this without making you sound old.
I'm not taking it offense in any way.
Of course.
I still have my hair.
But Spanky is definitely one of the most seasoned veterans in this industry that I know personally. I still remember when he told me, "Hey, I started working on Reboot," and I'm like, "Shit, Reboot's one of the shows that really got me interested in computer animation." So you
get that a lot.
It's kind of like meeting your hero in a way, right? It's like no, but honestly, it was awesome because you want to meet people that inspire you, right? So for me, my inspirations were Lion King, Toy Story, and watching Reboot. Like the three mediums is you have 2D animated films, you have like one of the first 3D animated films ever, and one of the first 3D animated shows ever. And that's what drew me to doing what I'm doing now, and it's really awesome. Like Spanky's worked I could say everywhere, and he has experience across the entire field, I guess all the industries that can really encompass like 3D animation, right? From TV, film, game dev, VFX.
Yeah, commercials, VFX,
It's crazy, right? And And I think this is going to be a very interesting episode to just to kind of go over your experience kind of growing up, where you really started, briefly touch on education and how it really kind of kick-started your career to I guess your trajectory as a professional animator to where you are now. Yeah.
Well, Mike.
We only have an hour, by the way. So
but now I'm getting through the 70s.
Oh God. No, you know what? We're gonna. I'm every time we speak and we speak about things I've never heard about you, I'm always so interested. So, like.
Well, it's funny. It's funny when you said you talked about inspiration there, because I think whatever you do for whatever career, obviously that's where you start, right?
Yeah.
So it's like mine's. I was when the original first Star Wars came out. I was at the perfect age. I mean, it was I was like, what? I'd be 10. So like it's aimed at 10-year-olds. So I mean, so you see Star Wars and your mind explodes.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, like what am I watching? And then you play the toys and everything, and then my neighbor and I were best friends, play the toys on the driveway. But he had an older brother, and they had a Super 8 camera. So we thought, and I also watched a lot of Ray Harryhausen films like Jason and the Argonauts. Mm-hmm. And so I obviously no internet. You just have to discover things with books. But we started doing stop motion with our Star Wars toys. And so we were building sets and using all the toys and making 3-minute short films. So I think it kind of started there. So and then as you get older and you discover more things, like you discover, watch the Muppets. It's done by Jim Henson. They start to learn what all their background is. They start to idolize these certain people, and you kind of just work towards that. So, it's like Jim Henson and Ray Harryhausen and George Lucas and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think and I'm not saying you're my Jim Henson, but you're definitely like.
I wish, God.
Well, you could be my Jim Henson. How about that? No, that's great. I think everyone, and what I love about the Star Wars franchise is that it's so generational. As in, it's like, for you had like the first batch of the Star Wars generation that really inspired you, like New Hope, Empire, and Return of the Jedi, right? And then I was brought up more on the Phantom Menace era, and now we have the next generation with the Force Awakens, and it's really awesome to see that because of how multi-generational it is. Like we can all enjoy this franchise with our family, with our friends, with our our kids, with our grandkids. It's really awesome.
I can really assume that they're inspiring the current generation that's watching them. So
exactly.
Yeah, there's stuff there's so much visual stuff now. I can't even set myself back in that, like if trying to be like a 11-year-old now, right? Your head would just explode. All the Marvel movies and stuff.
Oh, I know.
It's madness.
So with Star Wars, you said that's something that inspired you. How did that, I guess, kick off where you decided, or when you decided to actually say, I want to do this, I want to make VFX? Like, how did this all start?
So Star Wars got started, and then doing this stop motion films. Mm-hmm. So I found that really intriguing. Then you hit 13 and 14, and I started watching horror movies. And then all of a sudden you're in high school, watching a lot of horror movies, and you're actually trying to make horror movies with your VHS cameras out in the woods. So you're trying to learn about filmmaking. You get books. You get books about Spielberg. He talks about all the composing a shot and film editing. So he's kind of learning all this stuff that interests you. You just kind of keep building it. And then I was taking art all through high school, and I knew I wasn't going to university. I knew I wanted to do something art related, but I had no idea what. So I, a lot of talks with my art teacher, and she said I should take graphic design, because then I could try photography, illustration. I could try all these things. So I took her up on that. I had to bring my parents to school because they thought, oh my God, he's going to be an artist. He's going to be starving in a loft somewhere, trying to sell paintings. So I brought them to school, and she made them realize it was a viable career. So I did graphic design. Meanwhile, you're still feeling that, and you're still learning about things. At this point, you're also in that really golden age of Disney, like Lion King, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So you see these beautiful, majestic animated films, and of course, special effects movies were getting better as well. So you have this culmination of everything coming together. Mm-hmm. And then when I finished graphic design, I thought, okay, I really enjoyed that, but I need to see stuff moving. So I looked around, and I got accepted for classical animation. But I was, at the time, I thought, I don't know if I could draw good enough. Just what I was thinking at the time. But then they were just starting this new computer animation program at Sheridan. And at that time, it was only a 1-year diploma. It was like a postgraduate thing. So I had to use my graphic design diploma to get into Sheridan. So I got in, and there's only 16 people in the class because there's only 4 computers. So, I mean, yeah, it was crazy. I mean, at that time, the computers would be like $500,000 each. So there's only Sheridan and then Cal Arts in California because the gear was so expensive. Mm-hmm. So yes, I went and took that. So like I said, then you're learning, and luckily for me, is that the year I was in computer animation was the first year computers had an interface, like actually using a mouse and actually like building things. Before that, it's all based on you're inputting coordinates like off grid paper. I have no idea why. I have no idea why I found that appealing. But then to compound that too, was like at the time I was still obsessed with Jim Henson at the time, and they had just done the first CG Muppet. And so that was PDI did that in California. I was fascinated with this. I was like, how the hell they do that? And it was a thing called a Waldo system because, the puppets are, their hands are inside the head. Mm-hmm. So they basically built a version of that to go right into the computer. I thought, okay, if I take computer animation, maybe I can somehow learn one of these Waldo systems, and maybe I can still become a puppeteer. So I just kind of I tried to figure out backdoors into all this stuff because I wasn't quite sure how you're going to make a living doing this. So, but yeah, I did computer animation, and then I luckily got a job just doing commercials. I just worked a night shift by myself for 2 years. There's 2 guys day shift, I was night shift, and then you just kind of go from there. You just keep working, keep building your demo reel, and then move on to the next thing, and move on to the next thing. So,
do you feel, because of the early ages of technology, do you at the time with computer animation, graphics in general, did you feel like you needed to be a bit more creative? Trying to build your reel and just creating content for your reel?
Yeah, I mean, you're immediately against time constraints, which is funny because that's basically our job now. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're working on, you're always against time constraints. Technology gets better and faster, but the shots get harder. You had to be creative because you only had a certain amount of hours on the machine. Because there's 4 machines, we had to book time. Mm-hmm. And so I was usually graveyard shift anyway, so midnight to 8:30. And then as the year progressed, I realized my film, I wasn't going to finish it. It was too big. And so at that point, you just start making edits and cutting it down until you know it's feasible and you can get something that still makes sense. Mm-hmm. And funny enough, but 2 years into my job, my first boss, he told me that's exactly why he hired me. Because I guess when I got my interview, I mentioned my film was longer, but I had to cut it down. Mm-hmm. He goes, that's why I hired you, because I could see you already thinking about production schedule and just trying to work within your limits of the time limits. Mm-hmm. And so it was more your critical thinking as opposed to your actual animation that's what I hired you for. So that was really interesting.
No, that's actually a really important note, right? Is like we were saying before, I think before we started recording, is sometimes like the content on your reel will speak for itself, but it's those little things like you mentioned where, oh, we hired you because you walked us through the process of you having to cut down, your reel. You're thinking about production related, I guess, production related challenges, and I feel like with my students, because I still teach, right? A lot of the times they're not thinking with that mentality. They're thinking about still trying to maintain what they have, and it'll be up to me to provide them the feedback to say, hey, like what you have here is great, but we need to think about brevity here. We got to think about time constraints and try to maximize quality within our time constraints.
Yeah, because it'd be real ashamed to you finish your year and you realize, oh geez, there's not enough in my reel to show anything to a potential employer.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you have this beautiful short film, you have to cut it down to finish it. It'd be good to do that, just kind of swallow that at the time. And then, you can just work on it on your spare time and make it as grandiose as you want.
Exactly. So entering your first job with working on the commercials, do you feel that laid the groundwork to propel you into working in VFX? Because I remember you telling me that was kind of like the second wave or second stage in your career.
Yeah, VFX was an interesting one because you're working commercials, then we're also working with Nelvana. So we actually were doing a lot of stuff for the Beetlejuice TV show.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and that was fun because it was insanely creative. Just like, okay, you got to do 30 seconds a week. And, we had this camera, we're scanning stuff in. I need a texture. I remember one time, because I was there by myself, one time there was like, I need this texture, and I had these really wild shorts. I was like, took my shorts off and just scanned them under the camera. And I just used them as a texture. So it's just really creative, really fast.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did that for, I think I was there for like 4 years.
Yeah.
And the stuff was getting progressively better. And then you're still watching, you still keep your eye on the movies though, seeing what's going on there. And by that point, I knew some people who had gone on to like ILM. So at least as you start to have friends that spread out to other companies, they have like little inside scoops as to what it's like there, how you get there, that kind of thing. So when I left my first job, that's when I moved to Vancouver to work on Reboot. And that obviously was a huge deal, like the first CG show. And I remember still I think I was only 25, but the median age of our crew was 22. So it was a super young crew. And we worked insanely hard. We played really hard as well, especially at that age, like in city like Vancouver. But the good thing is that I think just working on a show that had a semi-regular schedule, they just become a workhorse at that point. And then that is actually one of the reasons that helped me get my job at ILM. Is that you have to think of a crew divided into like three. Like there's like the juniors, the mids, and then the seniors. And so I went into ILM as one of the mids because they need that middle to be just workhorses. They just keep footage pumping out while the juniors are just trying to learn, and the seniors can concentrate on a smaller amount, but they can do like really high quality stuff. So that's just one of those things where it's like, well, that step led to the next step. So
that's awesome. So
yeah,
Reboot is there. I always tie back to three pieces of media or three productions that inspired me to become a 3D animator. And the first one is Lion King. My passion, that really kickstarted my passion for animation in general.
It's a beautiful film. Yeah,
it's so good. And then, actually, I would say four things. And then there was Toy Story.
Sneakers. Sorry.
Not yet.
Okay, Lion King, Toy Story.
Yeah, it's Toy Story. It was, for me, it
Yes.
was the first 3D animated film I've ever seen. And one of the first ones ever. That really inspired me. There was then Jurassic Park, which I adored to this day. And the one show I really enjoyed was Reboot. So just imagine the inner excitement I had when Spanky tells me, yeah, I worked on Reboot, and I'm just like, I'm fanboying inside internally without like, keep it cool, But it was really awesome because it is in a way like meeting your hero, someone that indirectly inspired you, right? And it's a really joy to have been able to I guess create this relationship with you, with someone I feel has inspired me, has in a way also mentored me over the years as well with just career advice. So it's really great. And but before we move on from Reboot, I just need to ask: is there one shot in Reboot or one sequence in Reboot that you to this day like remember and really adore that you worked on?
When we first started it, we did. I think there was 5 seniors.
Uh-huh.
I think we divided the characters up. So I had Dot.
Uh-huh.
I can remember some scenes with Dot where the animation was half decent.
Yeah.
Half
decent.
Well, I mean, at the time,
it was really linear motions too, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, like I said, you have this young crew. We're all learning, and we're trying to get this footage done. I think it was all forward. I think it was all FK as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I can't think of a certain scene. I remember. Actually, it was interesting. We actually were falling behind schedule, and there's one show. I can't remember which episode, but this episode, obviously, episodes take place in the game.
Yeah.
There's one episode where it was a game. It's kind of like a Mad Max. They were truck driving.
Yep,
driving this huge rig.
Mm-hmm.
And this actually was really good for me because we were falling behind, and we had that show, and it's that show that they purposely planned that show out so that we're going to stick these 2 characters in this rig, stick these 2 characters here, and we basically minimized the amount of sets that you saw, and the characters were just like set up in certain situations, and we burned through that footage. So that was like another interesting thing for me. It's like, oh, interesting. That's a clever way to like, learning just in production is learning how to edit and just learning how to do things. So I had fun memories of that show just because it was like I actually love editing, and that was actually a really good eye opener about editing as well. So that's kind of the things you kind of put in your back pocket. It's like, okay, if I ever get in trouble, I'm just gonna simplify things. But yeah, actually my favorite thing at that company was when we actually worked on the Reboot ride for the IMAX ride.
Oh yeah.
Could be a small crew of 7, and really, really talented guys. And I had a lot of really fond memories of that. So it was really crazy working on that ride. That actually was the first time I ever touched Cinemax for a game, because we did the cinematics for the Reboot game for PlayStation.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that was actually working with EA in Vancouver. So that was kind of new and different as well.
It feels like the experiences you went through at it was Mainframe, right?
Yeah, Mainframe. Yeah.
Yeah. Those experiences, just I guess the production challenges you had to go through, really carried you into I guess working at ILM, right? It allowed you to kind of establish workflows and just think a bit more creatively, think a bit more differently in terms of how productions. I guess I'm not sure if Mainframe and ILM had the same budget, if you know what I mean.
We're not even close, yeah.
So I'm just curious if a lot of what you've learned was able to transition over into ILM.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a natural growth, because I think by that time you're like 8 years into the industry.
Yeah.
So obviously you're growing. There's a natural growth as a person, and as your animation talent is getting better. But then, there's also things you start for picking and choosing things from people. It's like, oh, I like how that producer handles the crew here, there. So you see a lot more, and you just pick and choose things that work. These things you see that work and things that don't. So at that point we started working at Mainframe. We like you said, like get to the point where you're churning out so much footage. So when you go to something like ILM, and we give you your shots, and you're like, this is it? Like, like you're looking at the time.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I only have to do like this much this week. But of course, the level is
Quality,
so much higher. So it's like all of a sudden that little amount feels like this amount anyway.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh my god, I have a week to do this shot. And it's like, oh my god, I only have a week to do this shot.
Yeah, it changes so quickly.
Yeah, it changes fast. It's so you start to see the level of detail that you need to hit.
Yeah.
But like I said, but you know you've been through all these challenges before, so you just gotta keep digging and keep picking away at it. At that point, too, you're like, you should basically become, managing your time is one of your number one things. Is time management. So each kind of level you hit, you have to be better at time management, and just kind of know your limits and know what you're working with. So
absolutely, and just to take it back to when you were first hired, right? It's what it comes down to is time management and how it carries over. And it's a core skill, a fundamental skill that everyone needs to build up in order to be successful, right?
Yeah, and people talk about soft skills, which is like, just how you deal with other people, how you handle yourself in a crew situation, and those are super important as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So your time at ILM. Let's talk about this. How long were you at ILM for?
5.5 years. So like, the very first thing I worked on was Phantom Menace, and with Star Wars stuff, Star Wars is 18 months on, 18 months off. So most animators, some animators around 18 months. I think I was only on it for 12, which is still a long haul. That's a long, that's a long haul in any movie. So then Star Wars wraps up 18 months. Then they take 18 months off. Then they start the next one. And so Star Wars was the first one, and then I had that dreadful because Star Wars ILM, when they do dailies, it's on a full theater screen. So my first shot came on a theater, I shrank down a chair like, oh my god, it's so big. I mean, you see, because you work out a character, you know what stuff is good, what stuff that needs help, and all of a sudden you're seeing this massive thing. It's like all your tiny little mistakes look huge on a big screen. Yeah. So that was terrifying at first. It took me a while to get used to that. Yeah. Going from TV to a giant screen. Yeah. I mean, even though we had done the IMAX ride, it wasn't that kind of character detail. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was crazy. And the first thing I worked on was Jar Jar, which, for whatever people think of him, was he's still a full CG character inside a VFX movie. Mm-hmm. So that was a big thing at the time as well.
That was huge.
And technically, he was a fun rig to do. So it was a great rig to work with. So
definitely one of the most polarizing characters in Star Wars.
Yeah. But, and what's funny, it's that voice. I mean, it's funny because one of the animators early on did a test with Jar Jar using very subdued audio from an old 50s movie, and it looked amazing.
Really?
I wish people could see that, because it was like exactly the same character, this subdued performance with his deep voice. It's like, God, that looks awesome. So it's just like, yeah, it's one of those things.
Oh, was it a Lucas call?
Oh, well, for sure, yeah. I mean, ultimately, it's funny because, like, everybody, when you're working on it, you're still like a fanboy inside. Yeah. So my inner 10-year-old is just like screaming, but you're I'm an adult now, and you're trying to do this serious thing. But ultimately, it's about, for him, it's still about making the kids laugh. So, what are you gonna do?
Did you tell me one time you had an interesting story about George Lucas, I forgot who it was. You told me a story, and if this is not accurate, just because we can save it for later.
I think what you're talking about.
Is it the cookie story? Or
that's Morgan Freeman.
That's Morgan. Oh yeah, Morgan Freeman. But yeah, do you have any stories with George Lucas at all?
The one thing that it's funny, you're talking about George Lucas making a call on certain things. Mm-hmm. 60 Minutes, like Diane Sawyer from 60 Minutes came in. And so, like, George was like, listen, George was working remote for dailies, but 2 or 3 times a week, he actually would be in the room with us doing dailies. And and I'm not gonna put the visual effects soup on the spot, but there's a visual effects soup working at the time. Super nice guy, unbelievably talented, but he didn't like sort of the cartoony stuff. And I had this Jar Jar shot where Jar Jar is supposed to sneeze, and he sneezes himself right out of the shot, total cartoon. And so I'd done it a couple of times and got it looking half decent. And the VFX soup he just hated it so much. He thought the animation was nice, he just didn't think it belonged in the film.
Yeah.
And so he waited until George was in. And so he showed the shot and he presented his case why it shouldn't be in the film. And George is really good listener. He would listen to people and then he would decide. So I had to give him that. He says, "Yeah, but it makes me laugh." That's all he said. I was like, well, that's a good enough reason. I mean, ultimately ended up being cut. I had to change it anyway.
I was gonna say.
But yeah, so it's just he just knew deep down. It's like, well, it's still entertaining. It's still for kids. So I appreciate it. It's all you can appreciate at that moment. It's like he listened to the reasons, but then he thought, well, it just makes me laugh. So.
And I know we were talking about this briefly before we started recording, but you had a moment you said when you were 17 years old about Star Wars, right?
Yes. Yeah. Apparently, when I was my now wife, when I was dating her at the end of high school, we were at a pool party at her uncle's place, and one of her, and I knew at that time I was going to graphic design. This is the summer before I started, and she said, "What do you want to do in the long term?" I said, "I don't know, but all I know is that I'm working on the next Star Wars film." And I have no recollection of saying that, but obviously it was like buried in my subconscious, and maybe I was like working my way towards it. I mean, it's totally conceivable.
Yeah.
You have this like deep down drive, this goal you're working towards. So yeah, it's funny. She reminded me about that a couple of years after I worked on it, so it was kind of interesting to hear.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome, and like actually being in the room with George during dailies, and like talking about how he really liked your Jar Jar animation. That must have been an awesome moment just to have, right?
Yeah, I mean it's great. I mean, you're not just George, other directors as well who might not always physically be there, but one of the dailies rooms was through the wall from me. And we usually had the door open because of the heat in the room. So I could hear all these directors. I could hear Spielberg making comments like on the movies he's working on. And he always had 3 movies going on at the same time.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
He was shooting one, doing post for one, and then working on story development for the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons I loved an ILM is because there's a model department and there's all this other stuff and I love model building. So I used to go hang around with those guys, and they're like, they show you everything. And I knew some of those guys, quick side, in grade 8, we had to do public speaking. And my grade 8 speech was about the special effects from Return of the Jedi.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
I'm talking about green screening and models. And here I am actually standing with some of those people in the model shop, and they're showing me stuff. So I was freaking out. And then and now I go to the art department. And the art department at that time was either comic book artists or architects. So there's amazing artwork everywhere. So it was more it's just total like movie environment. That's what I really liked. Mm-hmm. It's just a total creative environment, and it's all about movies. Then occasionally there's like a really cool director there that you can talk to or work with. So when the last time I worked on was Ang Lee's Hulk, and Ang was right there with us.
That's awesome.
So like we're doing. This is just when like pre-viz was kind of starting, and so we were pre-visiting the dogfight scene in Hulk, and he's standing there at my desk. He's like, "Oh no, you got to do this with the camera because so it's almost like you're learning about camera stuff is by the guy standing right there." And so that was wicked, is having him there, and he'd be in dailies with us and acting out Hulk shots, and it was just so much fun. Oh. So yeah, stuff like that is just. You kind of cherish stuff like that. And then another thing was, of course, my ultimate thing is I wanted to meet Jim Henson, which of course he passed away when I finished college. But Frank Oz was at ILM one day, and bless my animation director at the time, he called me 30 seconds before Frank got to his office. So I just happened to walk by his office when Frank was there. He's like, "Hey, Spanky, why don't you come in here and meet Frank?" And I was just like losing my mind.
Yeah.
Losing my mind. And he had giant hands like a big soft pillow. Just a soft pillow. It's like, "Hi."
No, that's an awesome moment.
Like 30 seconds, I didn't care. I was so happy.
Yeah. I feel maybe I'm fast forwarding a bit too much, but do you feel that sense of being in that, I guess, studio culture? Do you feel it's still there in VFX? Because right now, like, VFX is huge. You have hundreds of animators potentially working on one film at the same time across many studios. Like,
yeah.
Do you still feel that there is that sense of like small, in a way, indie culture of just working on things together as a big group with these big time directors, as an example?
It's. I mean, I haven't worked on a Marvel film yet, but there you have like 10 or 11 studios. But I have worked on films where other studios are doing work, and most of the time you just working with blinders on. I mean, you see their work, but you don't really have any connection with them.
Yeah.
So a little bit is lost there. A little bit of the collaboration is lost. I mean, because you're working on your section. So internally in your own studio, there's still a lot of collaboration going on. That's still really exciting.
Yeah.
Because I mean, ultimately, everybody there is still film nerds. So there's still that, which is good. But yeah, overall, there's huge scope. It does get lost a bit for sure. It's cool to see all the work coming in, and occasionally you might know who did it because it's like after a while your friends are spread, your former coworkers are spread everywhere around the world. So some point it's like, oh yeah, I know this person, I know that person. Yet, and one of their shots comes in that you see. But yeah, it's a little bit. Yeah, it takes away from it a little bit for sure.
Yeah.
But ultimately, at the end of the day, you're just trying to make your section look as best as you can. So. That's sort of all you can do. But yeah, what I mean, like, working on one film. Actually, it was nice because, like, when we were working on Shape of Water at Mr. X, that was nice because it was back to that. The small thing. Like, Guillermo was there with us.
Oh, that's awesome.
We're the only studio working on it, so it is that collaborative environment again.
Did you shoot his whole film at Pinewood? Is it Pinewood?
Yeah, Pinewood here in Toronto. Yeah.
Makes sense. He always shoots here.
Well, he lives here most of the year.
Oh, it does? Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But yeah.
I know there's one thing you touched on that I want to kind of go back on is because you were kind of you entered the industry during this really, I guess, the revolutionary age of VFX, right? Like there was T2 started becoming a thing.
T2 was the switch.
Right? Like
yeah.
And
T2 was the switch.
And because of that, like there are a lot of people you do meet in the industry and like I was mentioning earlier, you get to work with the actual like directors like George Lucas, Ang Lee, right? And that's really awesome. But you also end up working with people who, like, especially right now, like you said, they're scattered across the world, that are like animation directors at Pixar, animation directors at DreamWorks, just everywhere, right? Yeah. And I feel when I talk to you about, let's say, I still remember talking to you about when I watched Toy Story 3 and loving the scene where Buzz Lightyear got switched to the Spanish mode.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, that scene was one of my favorites. And you're like, oh, X and Y worked on this. I forget his name, but you told me, oh yeah, he worked on this shot. And like, you know these people, and it's because, back in the day, it was a smaller industry, and you kind of get to. I'm sure all the connections you've made are now in positions of I guess in a directorship or a directorial position. Even producer position. It's really great to kind of see how things have evolved and how your peers, people you've worked with, have now this massive influence on this industry. Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, what's going to happen as you go through the industry. That's going to happen. And with you yourself at Ubisoft, it'll be the same thing. Like as the years progress, then also people you worked with, maybe you started with at Ubisoft, or who started with you at Ubisoft. Wherever you're going, also maybe like game directors and such. And yeah, it's just the natural progression. But yeah, most of my peers, a lot of my peers now are teachers.
Oh, yeah.
Teachers or directors, or some even like CEOs and stuff like that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, natural progression.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I really adore about this industry is despite how global it is, we all know someone. Right? We all know someone that knows someone, and it's a good thing and a bad thing. You want to make sure that you conduct yourself well, so at least you leave good on good terms with people, because it could really contribute to I guess your career path and where you end up as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, anybody watching this who is just getting into the industry, that's for any industry actually. For that's definitely one of the number one things. I mean, I think that goes back to the soft skills again, because I've had interviews in the past where the person has been unbelievably talented, like so killer. Yeah. But then you got me for an interview, it's like, I can't hire this person. Yeah. Because they're going to disrupt the whole crew. Yeah. Just because their personality might be something maybe super brash or the way they handle themselves. The crew will kill me if I hire this person. Yeah. So it's just you feel so awful at those moments because the person is so talented. And that works the same even when you're working in the industry. I think when you handle yourself in a crew can be great for your career or sometimes detrimental to your career. So
absolutely,
it's one of those things.
And you've been in positions, multiple times where you've had to build a team. You're always looking at reels. You're trying to recruit people. What is your process in building a team?
First I'll just get a number of that. The producer will say to me, okay, we need this many people. We need we need this many at this level, this many at this level.
So read that last bit.
Oh, so you're told the amount of people you can have at each level. You have this many juniors, this many mids, and then you have 2 seniors or something. Yeah. So at least when you have on papers, okay, I know I can hire 6 people and have to be this level. So that's one thing to start with. Then you start going through reels and you sort those people into the different levels, and then you just kind of go through the reels again at each level, and then we write down a lot of questions. We might do phone interviews just to get a sense of the person, and then we might bring them in for just a face-to-face. I mean, you start to narrow pretty quickly. As quickly as you think, once you get the reels that you like, at that point it just becomes bringing people in, just getting a sense of their personality, just how they handle themselves, how they handle themselves in the interview, and just kind of you pick up a vibe off someone pretty quick. Yeah. Then we just kind of start from there. We have put together what we think is best. And then you just start. And then sometimes there's issues where we have to replace somebody, or somebody themselves think it's not for them and they voluntarily leave. You just try and work. Put it together as best you can. It's amazing how I was always amazed it was never as complex as it seems. It became pretty apparent. If you have 10 reels, you talk to 10 people, it's pretty apparent pretty quickly who it's going to be. So, just personality-wise and such.
No, for sure.
Well, I mean, like you said, if you get someone who does have experience, then you can check with someone that, he works, they worked with my friend. So I just phone my friend and say, okay, what's the scoop? And you get a lot of the inside scoop that way. So
one thing that's kind of crazy is the reason I actually applied to Core at the time where you hired me is through a mutual friend of ours, Tim Thompson, who worked at March Entertainment with us in Sudbury. Yeah. And then he's like, "Oh yeah, no, we're all gonna to end up working. We're all going." He basically, I guess, knew people there as well at Core, and then ended up applying. And then next thing you know, a bunch of us started applying, and then next thing you know, there's like 4 of us animators for coming from March.
Well, there's a lot to be said for that. You know, if like, let's say that like you know, four you guys work together, 4 people work together at March, so you're already pretty tight knit.
Yeah.
And you know, if I talk to all those four people, and I was like, okay, these 4 people are actually pretty cool. They're good animators, and they've already worked together, and that's you know. There's risks and rewards or stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I think there's more rewards than risk. Mm-hmm. I think the only time it gets risky is if you bring in like, let's say you brought in like 3 animators and the person's lead. It just depends. It just depends on the crew. Mm-hmm. But again, that obviously happens as well. Like even when we're looking for someone new, we'll put a call internally. It's like, hey, does anybody have any friends looking? Yeah. And then all of a sudden you'll get names. So I mean, and again, that comes back to soft skills and keeping your relationships going. It's like, oh yeah, that person's great to work with, or the opposite. Yeah. Like, please don't bring that person here. I mean, you know, like even when you hear something like that, it's like, that could just be like that one person. If you hear it repeatedly, all of a sudden, it's like, okay, there's something to it. So
no, for sure. It's really interesting to. I talked to one of our other mutual friends, David Yoon, about this. Is how we both got to where we are, right? And it started with. So when I was at Core, that's where I met David Yoon. That's where I met a few other people as well. Someone named Justin Kupka as well, if you remember him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then when Core shut down, Kupka was already. I think he already quit and was working at. With Dan Kretsch at Entrenched Inc. Working on VeggieTales, and then we were talking. He's like, "Yeah, just come on board, man." And from there, I started. He asked, "Hey, do you know anyone else?" And I said, "Yeah." So I started getting the other Andrews in, Jules, if you remember Jules.
Oh yeah.
I think Nicole was there too. All right, so we all ended up coming on board, all working on VeggieTales together. I think Andrew Farrell at the time was with, I think his name's Guppy?
Yeah,
Scott? Yeah, and he got him into DD. He got Andrew Farrell into DD in Vancouver. So like he ended up going to the West Side, you know, as the all-star he is. He's the all-star. He's like, I'm going my own way. Right.
Actually, to stay on this point, but going back a bit, one of the reasons that helped me get to ILM was that the animation director at the time, we had worked together in Toronto.
Oh yeah.
So awesome. So at least that does. I mean, it definitely does help.
Yeah.
Because then your name comes up in a conversation, and that's usually what first call you. So. And
it's awesome, right? As long as they're talking to you in a good light, that's the most important thing, right?
Well, that's the other thing. That's the other thing I usually tell people as well is like get to know your HR people, because I mean they move around just as well. Because and so like I've had. And that's funny. I mean, that's one area where my nickname has really worked. Is because I didn't, I inadvertently branded myself just with this nickname.
Yeah.
So I've had calls with recruiters like, "Oh, you're Spanky." So it's actually a funny icebreaker. So, it's just funny how these things work.
That's awesome. Well, you know what? We'll make sure we touch on that nickname nearing the end of the show. Because I vaguely remember the story behind that nickname.
I know it has to crazy.
I know it has to do with the wrestler.
Yeah.
So just to touch back on kind of like how things went is when Cup invited me over, and then I brought a few people over from Core. And then I went over to Pipeline, which is run by Chorus. And then I brought a few people over from Entrenched to Pipeline, including Dave Yoon. And Dave Yoon ended up going to Bedlam Game Studios.
Yeah.
And then, so he left there while I was still at Pipeline. And then I said, okay, I'm not going to work on talking trucks anymore. I want to do a bit more than that. So, I ended up doing iAnimate, and working under, Michael Kiley, who was my mentor at the time, the DreamWorks animator on Kung Fu Panda. So I was able to just work on my skills there. Next thing you know, Bedlam and eventually, untimely shut down, and, Ubisoft Toronto ended up grabbing Dave Yoon, And then around like 5 month mark of Yoon being there, my reel was ready, and I said, okay, I think it's ready, and I'm gonna to show it to Ubisoft Toronto. And next thing you know, been there for 8 years. Jesus.
I know.
Oh.
I was shocked when Ubisoft called me.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, why? I mean, I was not really a gamer, super casual gamer,
Yeah.
but at the time they just wanted to make their cinematics have more of a movie feel. So that's why they called me in. So I was super honest with them in the interview. Also, the other thing too is like in an interview, just don't try and obviously you have to sell yourself, but don't oversell it. Don't be more than you are. So
no, for sure. But I think because we have a couple people from HR from Core, that actually also work at Ubisoft Toronto. Maybe that also helps as well, right?
It does. I mean, it does. Because the first people to sort through resumes are the HR folks.
Yeah.
And they'll pull resumes. Mm-hmm. So I mean, if they know you, I love this person, mm-hmm. and they pull you aside, that's already the first step. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And again, that works the other way.
Yeah, that's.
It's like, oh, not this person, and then you go the other way. So
yeah, you gotta be careful. No, it's really awesome. So after ILM, maybe if you could briefly, I don't know, actually don't know the biggest gap between ILM and how we got together at Core, but what was your journey right after ILM?
That was immediately coming to Core.
Oh yeah,
the Wild, yeah.
Oh okay.
It's because I knew Steve William Spaz, the director. He lived not far from me in Marin County in California. Yeah. And we didn't work together. We played hockey together, and he has a ranch out there, and the ranch is basically open on Saturdays. Because he had satellite TV, so we watch Hockey Night in Canada out at his place. Awesome. He had a barbecue, watching hockey, and I played on his hockey team. And he had said, "Well, I'm going to Toronto to direct this movie," and I was intrigued by this because Spaz is such a huge personality. Just like he's a physically big guy, and he has this hilariously brash personality. Mm-hmm. I thought, oh man, that's gonna be fun. That'd be fun to watch him direct a movie. Yeah. At that time, we were contemplating moving back to Toronto. Yeah. And so the timing just kind of worked out, actually. Like, when I knew for sure he was going, that's when I contacted Core, and I just threw my reel into the mix. So, mm-hmm. But yeah, so we actually flew home. I was actually on a 6-week sabbatical. We flew home. We bought a house, and so I got things settled here. Then I flew back, and then I quit LM, and then I drove the car back from California.
Oh, jeez.
So I started immediately. So yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And then you ended up staying at Core for a pretty significant amount of time, right?
Yeah, whatever until it shut down. Yeah. What was that, 4 or 5 years, I guess? Yeah.
And I remember you telling me this story. Let me know if you could talk about this, but you had a story where you were working one morning. I think it was one morning or one evening, and then someone tapped you on the back, and I think it was someone introduced you to Mr. Jon Favreau. Is that right?
That's right. It was like 7:30 in the morning. And I wasn't awake. No, Jon Favreau was just thinking about doing CG stuff at that point. Mm. And so I guess he was just looking. I guess he was shopping around, just looking at companies. Yeah. I think I had. Oh God, I don't even remember our squirrel's name. Benny in the Wild. I happened to have that rig on my screen.
Yeah.
So I was just showing him. I showed him for like 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. I guess he was asking. And he was asking a lot of really good questions too. So yeah,
it's really awesome. And this wasn't the Morgan Freeman thing happened at ILM, right? Not
ILM, yeah.
And what was this whole cookie thing about?
Well, because ILM worked on so many feature films at one time. Yeah. The animation crew were spread pretty thin. Yeah. And a lot of times you didn't know what the heck anybody else was working on. Mm-hmm. But we started this thing at lunchtimes once a week where you could show whatever shot you wanted, and which is great because you know people who don't even know the movie, so it's totally fresh eyes on your shot. You say, I'm having problems with this shot. So you got all these fresh opinions, which was awesome. And the leads were there and all different levels of crew. Everybody put their egos at the door. and it was wide open. Everyone could say what they wanted. It was great. And we used to have snacks. We had cookies usually. And to get to this room was right behind the reception. So the reception, there's a hallway, then this room. Yeah. So we come out at that room at the end of lunchtime, obviously, and we have a few cookies left over. I walked down the hallway and we heard the voice. So I was like, oh my God, it's Morgan Freeman. You just know the voice, right? So it's like, so we go around the corners, like Morgan Freeman, two people with him, are the president of ILM, and it was a very tight squeeze. So we're trying to squeeze around. We got this plate of cookies. We're trying to squeeze around, and all of a sudden the voice goes, whoa, where are you going with those cookies? So it was just like my friend, why is it freaking Sean that started Animation Mentor. Sean turned around to play cookies. So Morgan Freeman, he moved cookies, took a chocolate chip, and then we got back to that room and put the cookie he moved, we put it in a bag and put it on the wall. Like Morgan Freeman moved this cookie.
That's awesome. Such a great moment.
It's just when that would happen, like where I remember Clint Eastwood walking through there, and I was losing my mind.
Who?
Clint Eastwood.
You never told me that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, we knew he was there, but
yeah,
it was a huge compound, 11 buildings. So the chance of running into somebody is rare. Mm-hmm. I happened to pass him in the parking lot. It's like, oh my God, it's Clint Eastwood. Yeah. So yeah, just get those little moments like that.
That's awesome. Those are moments that you'll take with you, throughout your career, right?
I mean, that's like, yeah. I mean, it's funny. We worked all these places. We worked with so many people over the years. For me, it's those crew moments that you remember. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's cool. It's cool to do this shot in a film. Like, oh yeah, that turned out pretty good. But for me, it's all the funny crew stuff. And the cookie one's great. Yeah. And there's so many just stupid little stories like that, which those are the ones that make me laugh all the time. Mm-hmm. And that's all. And it's usually when you reconnect with somebody after a while, that's one of the first things that comes up. It's all these dumb little stories. So yeah, it's just. For me, you have to work with that crew because everybody works so hard together. So
for sure, and that's the importance of building a crew that can really motivate you at the same time, just make you feel comfortable. I think the moment that there is this uncomfortable, the moment there's this uncomfortable feel. If even one person feels a little displaced from the whole crew, it creates this odd chemistry, or the lack of chemistry, right? It's a little disruptive, and that's why, like you said, that's why I asked what is your thought process of building a team, because that's crucial to how the next year or so is going to go, right?
I remember at one point my animation director, Rob Coleman. I remember him being frustrated just about this exact thing. I can't remember what the situation was. I remember him saying, God, I should have taken psychology instead of animation. just to try to get these people to work together, you know? So it's really, because obviously you get all these different personalities. Not everyone's gonna gel. This is nature of humanity. But you try and get the best crew you can to gel together and just do really good work. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, Rob got called into a ILM meeting hall, the bigwigs, one time, because at one point there was 12 animators in a large space, and so we were quite noisy. You need 12 animators, and there's noise complaints about us. And Rob got called in. He goes, "What's the deal with your crew over in C building? Why are they so loud?" And I was like, you know what? At the end of the day, they produce the most footage in this entire company. So it's just just leave them be, because they're super. They gel really well. Yeah. They do really fantastic work, and it's just working. So let's just please leave it. Wow. So that was it. That was interesting.
That is.
He didn't tell that until a couple of years later.
I feel like there are some of these small stories that I almost recollecting now. But I guess, was there anything that you would say was some of your biggest challenges at ILM? Anything in particular that really stands out?
Well, I mean, you go through personal challenges. I mean, you go through upset. We have a job that's supposed to be Okay, it's 9 o'clock. Be creative.
Mm-hmm.
You just go through ups and downs. Like you have good days, bad days. Sometimes you have like a bad week, a bad month, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me, it's persevering through those.
Mm-hmm.
Especially on something like Star Wars, which had a huge schedule. It's like if you're 14 months on a film, at some point in there, you're gonna feel burnout, and so you just gotta try to persevere through the burnout stage. And still trying to do half decent work, but try and take care of yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's sort of like where you're. And again, that when you're on a really good crew, you can help each other through those things.
Mm-hmm.
And we had that in the past too. It's just like you can see someone super stressed. It's like, you know what? Let me just finish. You're not animating for them, but you're maybe doing other little things. Let me step a shot for you.
Mm-hmm.
So you just kind of do little things like that. So. It's just getting through those long hauls and those like creative little burnout stages that you go through. I mean, they still happen.
Yeah. I think if you are in the industry, it's pretty well known that the VFX and film industry can be pretty tough on artists specifically with hours, the amount of crunch time for sure. Do you?
Yeah.
Comparatively to game dev, because you did work at Ubisoft Toronto for a bit, what do you feel are some of the core differences, and we could also touch on some of the core challenges, or not core challenges, but more like the main difficulties and challenges with working in two different, I guess, mediums?
I found going into games, I was fascinated when I came into games. At first I was just like terrified, it's like, I don't know anything about games. But then I was, okay, it's still we'll just learn new software, but that comes with the territory. Mm-hmm. So learning a new software package, and then just sort of settling into the job, seeing how it works. The thing that was funny for me for games is because coming from movies, basically what I put on the screen is what I see what I put on my monitor is what I see on the big screen. Mm-hmm. And for me, not having that in games was driving me insane for a while. It's like, why is my character blinking? My character blinks right there. Because you're just learning all these things about game mechanics, mm-hmm. and the way the game crunches data. Yeah. And so that was funny, just getting over that. But once I saw it, I was like, oh, cool. This is like, I was doing cinematics at Ubisoft. So for me, it was pretty much just movie making anyway. Mm-hmm. I was really fascinated by the actual gameplay animation. I mean, it's really technical. Mm-hmm. I remember trying to help for about a month. It's like, oh man, I already appreciate the folks that do this, but wow, I really appreciate them now. Yeah. there's some hard, difficult challenges in there.
For sure.
Games just has so many more moving parts. VFX, okay, here's your plate, here's your character or spaceship, whatever. Make them look nice together, yay! Mm-hmm. God, games is wild. It's a wild ride. Just having like the open camera and things can happen. So many moving parts. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, there's a ton of coordination and collaboration that really needs to go on just to deliver like one shot, one sequence, one system. It's
even a little simple. Even like something that's seemingly simple, it's like, wow, there's a lot of work that goes into that. Mm-hmm. So.
Sure.
I mean, same as VFX. I mean, VFX from front, once we get the shot and animate it, there's so much stuff goes on before animation, and so much stuff goes on after animation to make it look really nice.
Yeah.
I was always really fascinated by other disciplines as well.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's very important to note is that despite all the wealth of experience that you kind of bring to the table coming into Ubisoft Toronto, right? There's coming into technically a new field in a way, forces you to almost relearn and start from scratch, right?
Yeah.
And
you're always learning. There's always new software, new techniques.
Yeah.
So that's just part of it. Mm-hmm. But then seeing different ways, just seeing how the different pipelines work. Yeah. I mean, it just takes time to settle in sometimes. I mean, there's frustrating days and amazing days, just like anything. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's definitely good to keep on top of your toes as far as like learning things. That's really great too. I'm always fascinated by that.
So, imagine I was an animator or just an artist in general, working in VFX, working in film, and I was interested in knowing more about game dev, and probably potentially joining game dev, that industry in general. In hindsight, are there things that you would say that you wish you would have known going into it, or like what was some advice that you can equip some of these artists to at least best prepare themselves for transitioning or adapting from one industry to the other?
I mean, the first thing would be the easy one. Well, not easy, but the best one would be if you know somebody in it, then just get information firsthand for sure. Yeah. Because obviously that's going to be the most important. If you don't know anybody in it, I mean, at least now with all the sheer amount of information you can learn online, or all the behind the scenes stuff, or like the making of, and there's so much information. At least you can start to sort of glean, a sense of difference between, okay, here's what I know I do in VFX. How the heck do they do this? And just that A to B point, just kind of dig through information to see what you need to get to that point. So obviously talking to people would be the first thing. It depends how open, or if you have a recruiter, maybe so you can talk to the recruiter and find out, well, what do you look for? Because what do I need? Or, I can make a demo reel like this. What do I need on my demo reel that you guys will see something different in it? So then you may have to work on something in your personal time, just to show that you can do this. But again, at least you have the tools to do it at home, which is wild. So just having the drive to want to switch gears and learn some new things and switch industries. Yeah.
Oh, it's definitely good advice, right? Knowledge is everything, and best preparing yourself with all the knowledge that you need definitely will get you more prepared.
I mean, like it's like anything. You build a huge pro list and con list, and then the more information the more you learn about it, then you can know for sure. It's like, oh, maybe I won't fit there. Or it's like, oh my god, I will totally fit there. And you can sort of gear towards it and know what you need to change or add to your arsenal. Yeah.
Are there any things that really I guess it doesn't need to be production, doesn't need to be just I guess in general, is there anything that is very similar in terms of working in games versus working in VFX and film for you?
Well, it's funny now that I've left games, I'm back in VFX again. I don't know. I mean, it's still, at the end of the day, it's still you're still making images. Whether it's 3D, whether it's a game environment where the player controls how they're seeing it, or a VFX environment where you're forcing the audience to look at it a certain way. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still. I mean, ultimately, you're creating things, which I love. I just love creating things, in whatever medium or however. I love trying to help directors get their vision on the screen. I love that. People ask me why I haven't directed more. It's like, I don't mind it, but I actually really enjoy the process of helping people get their vision on the screen. So for me, I enjoy that more.
Actually, that's really awesome. I'm kind of happy you touched on that, because being someone that's worked in the director position versus someone who's just animating, do you feel there are any attributes that one must have in order to succeed as a director?
As a director?
Yeah.
That's funny. We definitely need a strong team around you. I mean, personally, I was really, I think the first time I directed an episode of something, I was super nervous. I was like, oh my god, it's too much, I can't do this. But then you realize, okay, well, this person does this person does that. So just getting everybody to do their job and trusting everybody to do their job, that's super, super great, because the more people are doing their job, it's buying you more and more freedom to look at the whole thing, and then start concentrating on just the creative things that you need to concentrate on. It's like, I remember when I was working on the television show, I directed 8 episodes, and I just freaking loved my editor so much because he would like, because you work with the editor, so let's try this, and it's super funny, or you're bouncing ideas around. Again, that's just human collaboration. I just love collaborating. I just love creating things, creating things that look cool or just entertaining. Honestly, you just kind of ultimately you're a people person, that you have trust in your crew, and then just try and keep your vision sort of like on focus. Have some fun. if you can.
I think that's probably the one most important things about working in this industry is really having fun, and because it's that's what motivates you. At least me, right? I've been working on a project for quite some time right now, and as someone in a lead position, it's one of the most important things is to keep your team's morale up. Right? Because there's always going to be high highs, low lows, sometimes a bit more lows and highs. Of course, everything comes in waves. That's just production in general.
Here I'm complaining about movie schedules, and what I gave like 3 years. Just shut my mouth.
It gets intense, right? And I think it's very important to just make sure that the team is always, I guess, they not just remembers the goal, but remembers to keep in mind why we love doing what we love. And this is where it becomes challenging as a lead, because this is where everyone is unique in their own way.
Right. And go ahead, sorry.
No, and I was just going to say the same advice I'd give one person may not work with the other.
Exactly.
Person, right, and that's what's really important. And it has really, I've had my moments where it's been difficult to work with some people, but I'm always trying to find my way to adapt, right? And adapting is so important in this field, in both game dev and VFX, and it's really important to ensure that you kind of understand the scenario, understand the position you're in, both from a team structure position, a production, I guess where you are in production, and ensuring that the goal is always going to be highlighted to the team, but also ensuring that getting to that point is not going to be some grueling, painstaking process, right? And
right.
And really coaching your team, mentoring your team, and leading them with as much positivity as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hard, because there's days where you might not just have it in you.
Yeah.
You just kind of put on game face, and you sort of get through whatever sort of like time period that you're struggling through. But that's when you sort of like, hopefully there's people that you can lean on as well. Like if I had days where just like, my producer would sort of keep me in line. It's like, okay, we have to have this done by here. It's like, okay, just focus on that small goal, and then we'll get to the next big goal.
Absolutely.
So breaking things down into small goals sometimes.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. Is having a good support team. So the team that I have, it's a small team, but it's grown smaller. It's become smaller
Right.
over I could say over the years, but the team that I currently have is small, but holy crap, they're super talented. And I'm only as strong as the weakest person on my team, and to say that they're like, I can't even look at my team as individuals and say there's no weakling here. It's
like the Borg.
Honestly, it's I'm grateful to have the team I have, and also grateful to have the production support that I have. Right? Like you're saying, so just to be able to talk to a producer and say, hey, like this is happening, and it's stress will always happen in any job industry you're in, right?
Yeah.
And you really have to look up
human.
Exactly, everyone's human. You have to look up to the person. You're always trying to look up to someone for your support, and it's usually your manager, right? And the way I look up to my manager is the same way I hope like my team looks up to me, and controlling emotions, not controlling just your emotions, but also like helping them to control like your team members' emotions is something I really had to learn too. is if I look really pissed off, it almost allows them to feel pissed off, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I see him doing it, so it must be fine. But this is something I've had to learn is there are times where I'm stressed out, and when I see like my director all stressed out, it kind of makes me stressed out too, and then it just trickles down.
Absolutely.
It's
I mean, I remember on certain productions where, there might be like a few leads, and I could see one was just like, I'm taking that person for a walk. Yeah. And we just go for like we go over a walk and just go buy them coffee and just let them decompress a bit, let them vent. But it's just a matter of like recognizing that and then helping, and then because obviously you helping that person helps the whole team ultimately. So, but good days, tough, bad days, good days for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, building the team is a strong team. Understanding the team chemistry and ensuring that everyone, I guess, blends well with each other and just it's molded into a solid core, solid foundation. That's gonna get you through a project. It's absolutely gonna get you through a project. And with our industries like VFX and games, we go through a lot of stressful moments, and we really have to rely on like I rely on my guys. Like, yeah, I'm their lead, but I don't look at it that way. I rely so much on my team that for me it's not of, hey, I am one level above you. No, it's more of I'm in a position that will allow us to collaborate, and then I'll help to drive a lot of decisions that we make as a group. It's not me making the decisions. It's, hey guys, like, let's get together. Let's try to think about this together. And I handle a lot of the more production related issues, whereas they're handling a lot of the content. And that's, for me, been the most successful way to really lead a team, is making everyone feel empowered, making them feel like, I'm not just your lead. Think of me as someone that is trying to help lead us to deliver content that we're going to work on together as a group. And without one of you, we can't be a functional team, right? Like
especially if they know. I mean, your team, that's how. And then they know at the end of the day, if something bad happens, you're taking the heat for it. If they can appreciate that you sort of represent the collective voice.
Yeah.
And then if something bad happens, you're the ones taking the blast furnace for it. Mm-hmm. So hopefully, they can appreciate that. And then, if a decision happens above you that you have to break to your team, at least they know that ultimately, you are a team. That we have to do this because we're not going to like take it out on you or blame you for it. So.
Oh man, that's been the toughest part for me is seeing, let's say, my team work on some content that eventually gets cut, and like how hard your team worked on this content, and just for it to get cut, it's so demotivating, right? It just the demoralizing. It's like, well, I really believed in this, and I spent like a couple months or whatever working on this, and now it's just cut. You have to be in a position where you understand where they're coming from, but you also need to give them perspective on why this decision was made, right?
Yeah.
And it's a balancing act, because at the same time, like, you believed in the same content, and then I take on the brute. Like, when the decision's made, I'm always first one in line to say, why was it cut? Like, what led to this decision? And then if I felt as passionate about it, which I usually am, it then leads to, that, like you said, being that middleman between the director or whoever decided to cut.
The buffer, yeah.
Exactly. And I'm just there to say, okay, I can now understand what the situation was. I was not allowed, but I was put in a position where I can release my emotions about it. In a politeful way, a respectful way, right? And then now that I have all the answers, I could then tell like my team, relay that news to my team, and have all the answers there. And if they need to release emotions, I let them release the emotions on me. But sometimes, like you said, we just need to vent sometimes, but you have to make sure that you vent at the right time and in the right way. Like you said, going for a walk is like the best way to just ease tensions. I do it often is when I feel overwhelmed and a decision's made that I completely disagree with, or just irritates me, or creates a lot more work for me, or it's something that I've raised concerns about in the past, and it's like, oh, I told you guys, but look where we are. You know, those moments, like when those happen, I just need to just displace myself from the tension, right? And just kind of like neutralize emotionally, and just think about and try to rationalize everything. And I think being rational is like super important, because something always happens for a reason, right? And you need to understand why these decisions are made. I know you had a shot on Hulk that you told me about that almost got cut. Do you remember?
The dog shot? It was in the dog shot too, and Hulk picks up a dog and punches right down his throat.
Yeah.
No, too violent, we gotta cut it. And I spent so long working on this shot, and I was like, okay, this is gonna be a really cool shot in my demo reel. So I went to production and I said, can I spend one afternoon on this shot and try to come up with a solution?
Yeah.
So that's why I went in and just redid the camera. So you know it's what he's done, but you don't see it. You just get a sense of what's going on, and that salvaged the shot.
Yeah.
And it was just, I was so lucky, because I was like, you talk about demoralizing, that would have demoralized me for a while, because out of all the shots I had, that was probably one of the most cool ones for my demo reel at that time. So,
well, like that's an excellent example of being able to build a strong team and rely on someone, because let's say that decision was made, and then you knew you wanted this, there was a potential solution beyond being just cut in general, right? Is I look at my team, and let's say there's something that's potentially getting cut, and I give them the news that, hey guys, they're looking at, this is on the chopping board right now, like, is there anything we could do to salvage it? And then you really rely on your team to help come up with some of the ideas in terms of salvaging things that we're really attached to, right? Because sometimes it's really hard to separate yourself from the work you're working on.
Yeah,
it's very difficult, but you also need to rely on the I guess the talents your team has, and coming up with creative ways to really do something. And in game, it's not just creative ways to do something; it's technical ways to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole different level for you guys. Yeah. For me, I was just moving a camera around to the image. It would be so much more complex for you guys.
No, for sure, but that's what it comes down to, is just having that. It's being passionate about the work you're doing is really going to get you from point A to point B. That's the first thing that's going to get you there, but it's also making sure that you're able to take the feedback, the constructive criticism, and ensuring it doesn't hit too hard. Because I'll tell you, like, as artists, we love what we were working on, and for someone to say no, we're not going to keep it, is just like it gets personal at sometimes, right?
Yeah, I mean, you keep telling yourself that it won't, but it does. I mean, I've had that just in the months. I mean, it happens. I mean, you're so passionate, or you can see a shot in your head, and then either you don't get the shot, or when you're struggling and you give it to somebody else, it's just like, oh, like I had it, like I can see it in my head. It's for the reason you're having trouble just getting it done. So yeah, it still happens.
For sure. And you know what? It's always gonna happen. It's just it's ensuring that we, I guess, ensure that as a person we're able to really comprehend all the feedback that's coming to us regarding any of our stuff. It's and never taking it personally. That's so important, because sometimes I've worked with people that I've said, hey guys, sorry, this is getting cut, and they take it personally, because they're like, what the heck? We've been working on this for months. So like, we're always moving from this to this. We don't know what we're working on, and now you're cutting all this stuff. And then it's I'm trying to rationalize why decisions are being made, and then directorship starts getting questioned, and then your presence as a lead starts getting questioned, and it's very challenging at times, right? But that's the whole soft skill side, the people management side of things. Is that's where it becomes really challenging for those in director and a management lead position.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've seen people that have been they get promoted up a level or two, but then they don't get any help. So they struggle with things like this, and then they kind of flounder, and it just doesn't work out for them because they didn't have a support system to help them try and deal with these kind of things. So
absolutely,
I always feel so bad for them because they go from your peer, then they go up, and you see them struggle. You try and help as much as you can, but ultimately they just don't get enough help.
Yeah, and it's in those moments where I will look to, some advice from people I look to as mentors. Like there's you, there's other mentors I've had. You might remember him, Christian Zaduk. Yeah, he's someone I talk to often when just to say hi and just check in for some advice, right? But for me, I'm lucky to say that I was able to build this 11-year so far relationship with you, Spanky. It's been really awesome. I
should apologize for that.
No. So I think anyone would be glad to have you as a friend because I'm really glad to. I guess it was at first. It's it's weird, right? Because this is your boss in a way. This is your director, and when you're on that project, it's a different relationship. But the moment you start going on your own paths, you start to kind of establish this new relationship more than just a working relationship. Now it's just a friendship, right?
Yeah. And the funny thing too is when I had Rob Coleman at ILM, I looked up to Rob so much.
Yeah.
And I loved the way I loved the way he handled the crew and dailies.
Yeah.
And then I was lucky enough to be close enough friends with him that we go for lunches where he could just let steam go. Yeah. And it's wow, that's I had no idea that was bugging you. He's so good at the poker face. Yeah. So I learned so much from him about how to handle the crew and stuff like that. Yeah. Those are kind of lessons that you take for. I was I love the way that person did this. I love the way they handled that. You try and start doing those yourself to try and learn how to do these things. So.
Yeah. No, it's really awesome. Yeah. It's you really draw from people that really inspire you, right?
For sure. Yeah.
It helps you make these critical decisions during a project that it's kind of what would Spanky do? What would Christian do? You really ask yourself those questions. And I have asked myself those questions, and if I'm in a position where I don't know the answer, I don't feel afraid to message you or message anyone that have been a mentor to me, and just to help me get the answers. And they're always willing to answer it because this is what this industry is about. It's not just the content we're making and the magic we're making as a crew. It's also just the relationships we're creating every project we go on to, right? The amount of people across the industry is insane.
I mean, it's not as big as people think it is, but there's still a lot of people. Yeah. But it's not as big as people think it is.
Yeah. By having these relationships with people in these positions, like director positions, CEO positions, you only know a subset of people, but because of the position they hold, they are in within that company, it kind of allows you the visibility of all the people that work, I guess, with them or under them. You know what I mean?
That actually becomes important for me if I'm hiring somebody as well. Yeah. Or something. Actually, there's been times I've been in a company where I'm not even in a hiring position, but I know someone that has put their name in, or somebody, or an HR person that did you work with so-and-so, because they're looking at their reel. Yeah. And then I can give them advice. But sometimes if I work with a person so long ago, but I know their lead, I'll contact their lead and say, hey, so-and-so just applied. Yeah. I need them being pretty cool. Is that still good? Yeah, you sort of and you get sort of immediate one-on-one feedback from their current lead that they're leaving. So yeah, it does become handy for stuff like that as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important in this industry.
And it's funny that I talk to them because when I talk to them, I realize they're people, but we still just shoot the shit like we did when we were working in the same office. Yeah. Because it's still that sort of same relationship kind of thing.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I think that's because I haven't been able to experience it. I've been at Ubisoft Toronto for the last 8 years. But even then, like I have so many friends that have moved on from Ubisoft to go to all these places like Sony Santa Monica, Activision, Blizzard, and this, because I'm keeping in touch with them, I'm in a way also connected to the stories they share with me at their own studio, right? And despite just being localized here in Toronto, there's like I enjoy this company and what we work on. I'm still able to almost not live vicariously, but to have a good understanding of other studio culture across the industry.
Which become hugely important if you're gonna make some life-altering decision to move to different coasts.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's nice to have a little bit of insight. I mean, when we moved from Vancouver to California, we actually stayed with some friends for the first month, which was important to us at the time because at the time our daughter was only 6 months old. So it was a lot to ask of somebody, but they let us stay with them for a month while we sort of settled in.
Yeah.
So you get stuff like that, which is amazing.
That's awesome, man. Well, you know what? To conclude the episode, I am going to honor you with this pair of shoe right here. As not give it to you, but more like this is a metaphor for you as a shoe. Let me explain why. So this here is called the Jordan 3 Black Cement.
Nice.
Right? So it's the Jordan 3, but it's the black cement colorway.
Okay.
And what this symbolizes for me is something that has a lot of wear, but is always going to be a classic and always delivers on quality.
Aww.
And to you, sir, you are the black cement. Yours. I wear this. It's probably one of my most worn shoes ever. Something that has a lot of wear. But at the end of the day, it's always a head looker, and it's always going to maintain the same quality level.
Thanks, much appreciated. And Jordan.
So again, thank you, Spanky, for coming on.
Oh, it was fun.
Oh, I love the stories. Like, there are a lot of the things you mentioned we've spoken about in the past, and I had a really good laughs with you about. But just hearing a lot of these other stories, just that I've never heard, are really interesting and intriguing to me. And I'm glad we able to share that.
I'll throw out a story at work sometimes. And it was like, your old man is showing. It's like, damn it. Caught again.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. I would love to have you on as often as possible. But yeah, you're just a delightful person to have and just to talk to. It's so easy to talk to you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. But just that concludes our episode.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in.
Bye, everybody.